This is a real story. Two brothers, one a lawyer, the other a doctor, left everything behind in Germany: their family, their friends, their safety nets. They crossed an ocean to America, chasing a dream. They believed their skills would open doors, that their names would one day shine proudly on office doors. But life doesn't always hand you success, it tests you first. They arrived with hope, and ended up with nothing. Cold basement nights, empty stomachs, bills piling higher than their courage. The lawyer once stood outside a store, craving a single cigarette, but couldn't afford even that. The doctor lost the love of his life because poverty stripped him of dignity. There were nights of silence, nights of tears, nights when giving up felt easier than holding on. And yet, they did not quit. This is not just a tale of struggle. It is the real story of the last cigarette. The story of two brothers, one a lawyer, the other a doctor, who discovered their true strength in the darkest hours and turned despair into destiny. Adrian Keller pressed his forehead against the airplane window, watching raindrops slide across the glass as the plane descended into New York City. The glow of the skyline looked like a promise, a dream built from steel and light. He whispered under his breath, "This is it, Lukas, our chance to rewrite everything." Beside him, Lukas Hartmann grinned nervously, his hands clutching a worn leather folder filled with medical certificates. "We'll make it, brother," Lukas said, his voice soft but hopeful. "I'll heal people. You'll fight for justice. America won't know what hit them." They had left Germany with pride in their education. Adrian, a sharp, determined lawyer; Lukas, a skilled young doctor. Their parents had saved every last euro for their education, believing their sons would carry the family name with honor. And now, here they were, chasing the American dream. But dreams, as the brothers would learn, are not handed freely. They are earned through blood, sweat, and tears, and sometimes even that is not enough. The first few weeks felt almost magical. The city was alive in ways Adrian had only seen in films: yellow taxis honking, neon signs glowing, people rushing with coffee cups in hand. Everything seemed possible. They rented a tiny one-bedroom basement in Queens. The walls were damp, the ceiling cracked, but to them, it was freedom. Lukas pinned his medical diploma on the wall as if to declare, "This is the beginning." Adrian stacked his law books neatly by the mattress he used as a bed, preparing for the day clients would come knocking. But clients never came. Adrian's German law degree meant little in America. Without U.S. certification, he couldn't practice. He printed business cards anyway, Adrian Keller, legal advisor, and handed them out at subway stations. Most people tossed them in the trash. Some laughed in his face. Lukas set up a makeshift clinic in a borrowed corner of a friend's shop. He offered free consultations just to get people through the door. A few came, out of curiosity, but never returned. They didn't trust a young immigrant doctor with no clinic, no fancy office, no reputation. The brothers tried to stay positive. Every night, they sat at the small wooden table in their basement, eating instant noodles, dreaming out loud. One day, Adrian said, "You'll have a clinic with a waiting line out the door." Lukas smiled, "And you'll have a law office in Manhattan, with your name shining in gold letters." But as the days turned into months, hope began to fade. Their savings vanished faster than they imagined. Rent, food, subway tickets, printing flyers. All of it drained their pockets. Adrian took odd jobs delivering food, cleaning offices, moving boxes in warehouses. Lukas picked up night shifts at a hospital as an assistant, far below his qualifications, just to keep them alive. They never told their parents back home about the struggle. In every phone call, Adrian said, "We're doing fine, Mama. Don't worry." Lukas added, "Yes, soon we'll send money." But the truth was, they had nothing to send. The basement grew colder in the winter. They wrapped themselves in blankets, huddled near a tiny space heater, eating whatever they could afford. Some nights, Adrian went to bed with an empty stomach so Lukas could eat. He didn't say anything, but Lukas knew. Failure was no longer an idea. It was a daily reality pressing against their chests. Adrian began smoking more than usual. It was his only escape, the only thing that calmed his restless mind. But cigarettes weren't cheap, and soon even that small comfort became a luxury he couldn't afford. One night, after a long day of rejection, Adrian reached into his pocket and realized he had only a few crumpled dollars left, barely enough for food. He stood outside a corner store, staring at the cigarette pack behind the glass, torn between hunger and habit. Inside his chest, shame burned. He thought, "What kind of lawyer am I, if I can't even afford a cigarette? What kind of man am I, if I can't feed myself, let alone my brother?" He didn't buy the pack. He walked home slowly, his heart heavy, the city lights mocking him. At the basement door, Lukas was waiting. He had tried to cook something with the little rice they had, but it tasted of salt and despair. Adrian forced a smile, but inside, he was breaking. Lukas, too, was struggling in ways Adrian didn't fully see. He had been dating a young woman he met at the hospital. She was kind, gentle, and for a while, her presence made him feel human again. But as money grew scarce, so did her patience. One evening, she came to the basement, looked around at the cracked walls and empty fridge, and shook her head. "Lukas, I can't do this anymore. I need stability. I need a future. I'm sorry." Her words cut deeper than any wound. Lukas tried to beg, but she walked out, leaving him alone in the damp room. That night, he sat on the floor, staring at the diploma on the wall, wondering if love was something only the successful deserved. When Adrian returned home and saw Lukas's red eyes, he didn't ask questions. He just sat beside his brother in silence. That silence carried more weight than words ever could. Weeks turned into months, and the pressure became unbearable. Adrian felt like a failure, Lukas felt abandoned, and the dream that once glowed so brightly now seemed like ashes. One cold night, Adrian found himself standing on the roof of their building, a single cigarette in his hand. His fingers shook as he lit it, the flame flickering in the wind. He inhaled deeply, staring at the city skyline. For the first time, a dark thought whispered in his mind, maybe it would be easier if I wasn't here. Maybe Lukas would be better off without me dragging him down. Tears welled in his eyes. He thought about stepping closer to the edge. His knees trembled. The cigarette burned between his fingers, a fragile reminder of life and death. Then, something inside him snapped. A voice inside shouted, "Cowards quit. You're not a coward, Adrian Keller. You came here to fight. If you die now, you prove the world right that you were nothing. But if you live, you can prove them wrong." He crushed the cigarette beneath his shoe. His heart pounded, but for the first time in months, he felt alive. He whispered to himself, "No, I will not die. I am not finished yet." Adrian didn't sleep that night. He lay awake on the thin mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling of the basement, his chest still heavy from what he almost did. The sound of Lukas's steady breathing beside him was the only thing keeping him anchored. When the first rays of sunlight slipped through the tiny window, Lukas stirred. He rubbed his eyes, noticed Adrian's pale face, and frowned. "You didn't sleep, did you?" Lukas asked softly. Adrian forced a smile. "Too much on my mind." He wanted to tell Lukas about the rooftop, the cigarette, the thoughts of ending it all. But he couldn't. How could he dump that weight on his younger brother, who was already drowning in his own pain? So he swallowed the truth and said, "I just need to find us a way out." But Lukas, too, was carrying a secret. After his girlfriend walked away, he had fallen into a quiet depression. He replayed her words every night, "I need stability. I need a future." They stung like poison. He thought of the dinners they once shared, the way she laughed at his clumsy English, the way she encouraged him to keep going. Now, all of that was gone. She hadn't even called back once. One evening, while Adrian was out delivering food, Lukas sat alone in the basement. He opened his phone, scrolled through her pictures, and whispered, "If only I had money. If only I could give you more." Tears rolled down his face. He slammed the phone shut, ashamed of his own weakness. In his heart, he believed she left because he wasn't enough, and that shame began eating him alive. Their poverty showed in humiliating ways. The landlord banged on their door, demanding rent. They dodged calls from utility companies. Adrian once stood in a supermarket, embarrassed when his card got declined for a loaf of bread. The cashier sighed loudly, as if his poverty was an inconvenience to her. People in line stared. Adrian wanted to disappear. Lukas's shoes had holes in them, but he wore them anyway, pretending it didn't matter. When colleagues at the hospital went out for drinks, he declined, saying he was too tired. The truth was, he couldn't afford even one beer. Sometimes, it wasn't the big failures that crushed them, it was these small daily humiliations that made them feel invisible, worthless. One night, after another day of rejection, Adrian sat with Lukas at the table. The single bulb above them flickered, casting long shadows. Adrian finally spoke the words he had been hiding. "Lukas, last night, I almost quit. For good." Lukas froze, his spoon halfway to his mouth. "Quit? What do you mean?" Adrian's voice cracked. "I went to the roof. I thought maybe the world would be better without me. I had nothing. No clients. No money. Not even enough for a cigarette." Lukas's eyes widened with horror. "Adrian, you didn't." "I didn't." Adrian interrupted quickly, his hands shaking. "Because I realized something. If I quit, I prove everyone right. Everyone who laughed at me, everyone who doubted me. And I can't do that. I won't do that. Not from you. Not for you." Lukas's eyes filled with tears. For weeks, he had been hiding his heartbreak, pretending to be strong. But now, the dam broke. "You're not the only one who wanted to give up," Lukas whispered. "She left me, Adrian. She said she needed stability, that I wasn't enough. And you know what? She was right. I can't even buy her a meal, can't give her a home. I've lost everything." Adrian reached across the table and grabbed his brother's hand. "No, you didn't lose everything. You still have me. We still have each other. And that's enough to start again." For the first time in months, they both cried, not in silence, not alone, but together. The very next day, something shifted. Adrian, while delivering food, overheard two young men talking outside a cafe. "Yeah, I just landed my first client on Upwork. Made $500 designing a logo." "No way, dude. I just built a website for a lawyer in Texas, $800. Digital work is the future, man." Adrian froze. Digital work. Clients paying online. He rushed home that evening, slammed open his old laptop, and typed, "How to make money online." Hours passed as he read about freelancing platforms, digital marketing, coding, design, content writing. It felt like he had discovered a hidden world, a new door that had been invisible before. When Lukas came home, exhausted, Adrian's eyes were glowing for the first time in months. "Brother," he said, "listen to me. We've been fighting the wrong battle. We don't need to beg for offices we can't afford. We don't need to wait for someone to give us a chance. The internet is a new country, a digital world. And in this world, nobody cares if you're a German immigrant in a basement. They only care if you can deliver results." Lukas looked skeptical at first. Digital world. "Adrian, we're lawyers and doctors, not computer geeks." Adrian leaned forward, his voice firm. "We are survivors. That's what we are. And if survival means learning new skills, then we learn. We adapt. We fight. Because I will never stand on that rooftop again. Not for cigarettes, not for money, not for shame. I'm done begging. From now on, we build." Lukas saw the fire in Adrian's eyes, and, for the first time in a long time, believed again. They started small. Adrian picked content writing. He figured his legal background made him good with words. Lukas chose digital health consulting, researching telemedicine and online patient advice. The first weeks were brutal. Rejections piled up just like before. But this time they didn't lose hope. Every no felt like practice. Every failure was a step closer. Adrian stayed up until 3 a.m., watching YouTube tutorials on copywriting and SEO. Lukas read medical blogs, learning how to adapt his knowledge for online audiences. Finally, after weeks of trying, Adrian landed his first gig, writing a blog post for a small business in California. Pay, $25. Not much, but when he saw that money hit his account, he almost cried. "Brother," Adrian shouted, waving his laptop. "We did it. We finally did it." Lukas hugged him tightly, and for the first time in years, laughter filled the basement. The $25 turned into $100. Then $500, clients started leaving good reviews. Slowly, their profiles grew. Lukas got his first online consultation. A woman in Texas paid him $50 for a half-hour health session. He bought bread and eggs with that money, proudly placing them on the table. "This," he said with a smile, "is the taste of digital success. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't fast. But for the first time since arriving in America, they weren't sinking, they were rising. And deep inside, Adrian knew the digital world wasn't just a side hustle. It was their bridge, their way to the dream they had almost lost. The glow from Adrian's laptop was the only light in the basement. But this time, it wasn't a symbol of despair, it was hope. With every late-night keystroke, Adrian was building not just articles but a reputation. Clients started returning, some even recommending him. Lukas, meanwhile, converted a corner of their basement into a makeshift clinic. With an old headset and a borrowed webcam, he advised patients online. He wasn't prescribing medicine, just guiding, explaining, and helping people who couldn't afford regular care. His warm manner and deep knowledge earned trust quickly. One night, Lukas leaned back and whispered, "Adrian, do you realize what's happening? We're not just surviving, we're building something." Adrian smiled, exhausted but proud. "Yes, and we're just getting started." The first month they made $500, the second one $200. By the third, over $2,000. When the first real paycheck cleared, Adrian took Lukas to a small diner. They ordered steaks, the first proper meal they had eaten in months. As the sizzling plates arrived, Lukas laughed, a real laugh that echoed through the restaurant. Adrian raised his glass of water. To survival. Lukas clinked his glass. To digital freedom. The waiter must have wondered why two men looked ready to cry over dinner. But for Adrian and Lukas, that meal wasn't just food, it was dignity. But success didn't erase their wounds. One evening, Lukas received a message from her, his ex-girlfriend. She wrote, "I heard you're doing better now. I miss you. Can we talk?" Lukas stared at the message, his heart twisting. For weeks, he thought of her every night. Now she wanted back in. He showed the message to Adrian, unsure of what to do. Adrian said quietly, "You loved her. But ask yourself, does she love you? Or does she love the idea of comfort you can now give her?" Lukas didn't reply to her that night. Instead, he closed the laptop and whispered, "If she couldn't stay during the storm, she doesn't deserve the sunshine." For the first time, he truly let her go. For Adrian, the hardest test came months later. He walked past the same convenience store where he once begged the cashier to let him buy cigarettes on credit. The same spot where shame almost broke him. This time, his wallet was full. He could have bought 10 packs if he wanted. But he didn't stop. He didn't even look at the cigarettes. Instead, he walked taller, thinking, "That night didn't kill me. It built me." A year later, the brothers saved enough to move out of the basement. Their new apartment wasn't fancy, but it had sunlight, fresh air, and space to breathe. Adrian reinvested his earnings into building a small law consulting website. He offered affordable legal advice to immigrants like himself, people who felt lost in the American system. His clients grew fast because he spoke their language, both literally and emotionally. Lukas expanded his consultations into a proper online clinic, collaborating with small pharmacies. Patients called him the doctor who listens. Soon, they weren't just earning, they were respected. 2 years after that cigarette night, Adrian signed a lease for a small law office. Lukas opened a modest clinic on the same street. Their names, Dr. Lukas Keller and lawyer Adrian Keller, were printed proudly on glass doors. On opening day, Adrian stood outside, staring at their names. His hands trembled. "Do you see this, Lukas? We did it. We actually did it." Lukas, choking back tears, said, "From a basement to this street. From nothing to everything." They hugged two brothers who had almost broken, but instead became unshakable. With success came responsibility. They never forgot the nights of hunger, humiliation, and despair. So they began helping others, teaching young immigrants about digital skills, giving free health webinars, offering low-cost legal sessions for struggling families. One evening, Adrian told a group of young men, "I almost gave up once. I stood on a rooftop with a cigarette I couldn't even afford. I thought that was the end. But it wasn't. It was the beginning. You will face nights like that, 2 nights when you want to quit. But don't. Because on the other side of despair, there's a world waiting for you." The room was silent. Some even had tears in their eyes. Years later, Adrian sat in his office, staring out the window at the busy American street. He thought of the boy who wanted to smoke but had no money, He thought of Lukas crying in the basement, believing love had left him forever. He thought of the humiliation, the rejections, the hunger. And then he thought of now. The law office, the clinic, the digital empire that started with a single $25 blog post. He whispered to himself, "That cigarette saved my life." Because in that moment of weakness, he discovered his strength. The Keller brothers became known not only for their professional success, but also for their story. Adrian published a book, The Last Cigarette, From Basement to Boardroom. Lukas gave TED-style talks about resilience, love, and letting go. Their story spread across immigrant communities in America, inspiring thousands. They proved that survival was not about luck or privilege, but about refusing to surrender when surrender felt easiest. And every time Adrian passed by someone smoking, he smiled not in judgment but in gratitude. For him, a cigarette was no longer a symbol of weakness. It was the symbol of the day life shifted. This is not fiction. This is the real story of two German brothers, Adrian Keller, a lawyer, and Lukas Hartmann, a doctor. Adrian once stood with nothing, no money, no hope, not even enough to buy a cigarette. Lukas lost the woman he loved because he could not afford stability. They were tested, broken, humiliated, and yet they rose. Now the question is not about them, it is about you. Are we really abnormal? Are we unworthy because life hit us harder than others? Are we not strong enough, even if we are not physically fit? Or is it possible that success belongs to those who start with nothing, fall 1,000 times, and still rise again? Because if Adrian and Lukas could climb from despair to destiny, what excuse do we have? This is not just their story. It is a reminder from nothing, you can become everything. The only real question left is, what will you choose to do with your life?